Hey, what is up? Welcome to this episode of the Wantrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofermento, and all you listeners know that as much as I love talking about AI, probably my first true love in business is and always will be marketing. And that's why I'm so excited, because in an age where everybody just wants to be laser focused on marketing, we have found an incredible guest for you today that is not only amazing at marketing, but really has the fundamentals when it comes to SEO, when it comes to all of the things that's going to actually move the needle in your business, not just shiny objects. So let me introduce you to today's guest and fellow entrepreneur. His name is Scott Orth. Scott is an SEO and digital growth expert. He's the founder of Thrive Business Marketing and the creator of Surge by Thrive. He helps businesses increase visibility, capture more leads, and automate their marketing using proven SEO strategies, conversion-focused websites, and yes, AI-powered tools along the way, but I'm going to call out some of those things. Increase visibility, capture more leads. I don't care how many cool things you're doing with AI. If you're not paying attention to this stuff, then your business is not growing in 2026 and beyond. So I'm excited about this one. I'm not going to say anything else. Let's dive straight into my interview with Scott Orth. Scott, a little bit of a slip from me. I said ortho because I'm already thinking about Scott Orth doing SEO, all these good things. My man, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Great to be here, Brian.
Heck yes. I'm so excited to really tap into your mind today, because you are at the cutting edge in so many different ways of what you're doing. But really, what I really admire is the fundamentals that you bring to the table. So, Scott, let's start with you personally. Who's Scott? How'd you start doing all these cool things?
Hey, yeah. First of all, great to be here. But yeah, I mean, where do I start? So I'll go back 25 years, basically 1999, and trying to start some of my own businesses and do some things online. And eventually it was like, hey, I've got to do, I got to figure out this SEO component in organic. And that actually started a little bit of a combination of that and paid ads. So I always like to talk about that part too, because this was before Google ads even existed. So this was on was it GoTo and some other types of channels where we were paying for 10 clicks for a penny, was the going rate. So that's where really I got my start and got into just sort of self-learning, like, hey, what is this organic thing? And that led me, I want to say probably about a year or so later, there was a job opening for an agency here in town, and they were looking for exactly what I did. They didn't even call it SEO. They didn't know what to call it, I don't think, at the time. But in going in and kind of getting started, that got me going, got me into the agency world, and got me working not just on my own sites, but dozens of client sites at the time. So yeah, that's where I started 25 years ago, aging myself.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that though, because Scott, I am going to pick on that age today, truth be told, because I'm going to argue that in today's day and age, it is actually a massive asset to you, because you've been there, you've seen it, you've done that, and you continue to bring the fundamentals, which I think that into today's world, a lot of people are trying to skip the fundamentals. Because Scott, let's pretend you and I were starting a business today. We could hop on ChatGPT and be like, create my entire website, write all my website copy, determine what my products and services are, what the pricing is. Obviously, that's not the most sound approach. What's your take on where we are in today's business marketplace, and importantly, how and why those fundamentals are even more prevalent now than ever before, I'd argue?
Yeah, I think there is a lot to that, where really you need that foundation. And I talk about this with a lot with clients all the time, that there's a lot that has changed, obviously, in 25 years, but a lot that also hasn't. The idea of, the user is first. You want to really think about the person who's coming to your website. And then even when it comes to when they're on Google or when they're in an AI engine or whatever they're doing that they're searching, it's a mindset. What are they looking for and why are they looking for it? And then you need to build your website and your SEO plan around that. So that does go back to foundation. Sure, you can jump on ChatGPT or whatever, and it can do a lot for you, but it's an assistant, right? It helps you fill in the cracks and build it all out. But you've got to have that solid foundation first.
Yeah, so let's talk about that foundation then, because I love how many tools you've already revealed are in your toolkit. And you've talked about SEO, you've talked about paid ads. There's so many ingredients when we have the marketing conversation. But Scott, when you're looking at a business, where do your eyes go? What are those tools that you call on so frequently?
So, there can be a lot of different tools, but we do try to take first kind of a holistic view. Where are you? We look at things like SEMrush, and Ahrefs and several of those tools where it's, look at where they're at organically. How are they showing up on Google? But then also, what are you doing in social media? Are you posting actively? Are you building an audience? Are you running ads? If so, where? Are you covering all the different social platforms? Are you just on Google? We don't forget about Bing, but it's still one of those, it's kind of off there a bit. And so we really do try to look at kind of the overall presence. Where are you online? Where do your customers find you? Or where can they find you, first of all, and then where do you want to be found? And then we try to build everything around that. So we make sure you're showing up locally if you're a local business, nationally, globally if you're larger. Show up in ads, show up in socials, show up organically. It's again, aging myself a little bit, but I go back to the old school of 20 plus years ago. You wanted to be on TV, radio, and billboards. It was like, that's what you want to be driving down the freeway, see a billboard, hear a radio ad, and then later in the evening, see a TV commercial. And that was like the ultimate, combination of traditional marketing coverage. It's the same idea online. You just need to be found in all kinds of different places so that you're found.
Scott, when I hear I'm a marketer at heart. Marketing is for sure my first love in the business world, but I'm going to blame all of us marketers collectively, because when we talk about getting found, and I work from coffee shops 6 days out of the week usually. If I'm not in the podcast studio, I love hanging out in coffee shops. And Scott, there's so many great coffee shops by me, and unfortunately, that's a great example of a local business. Unfortunately, a lot of them are struggling because they don't know how to get customers through the door, and they piggyback off of what they've heard people talk about in marketing conversations is, I just don't know how to get found. And it kind of kills me, and I'm sure it kills you as well, because as marketers, we know that marketing is something proactive that we can do. We can put ourselves in a position to get found. It's not something that mistakenly happens. Talk to us about that attitude, because I'm sure you hear this way more than I do about how many of your clients say, oh yeah, we rely on word of mouth, or oh yeah, we have a really great customer base that we've leaned on for years. They forget about the proactive opportunities that we can chase after.
Yeah, and there's so much to that too. Again, I'll go back to sort of the basics of SEO, where I believe that's kind of the foundation of, you want to be found organically when somebody hops on search and they type in what they're looking for. You want to show up there in maps and in organic and on AI and so forth. But there's so much more to it today. And I don't know how this kind of almost ties in with like influencers and some of that stuff on social. My wife and I were just talking about this the other day. If you ever listen to like K-pop, if you like BTS, some of these guys, you watch how they became so insanely huge globally. And a lot of it is because of social media. They would do these, lives and whatnot, where fans would sit and watch them eat. In one case, they watched them sleep. I can't remember what my wife said. There was like 5 million people or something across the globe that were just watching one of the artists sleep. But it was that crazy level of engagement that they had with people that made it, so insane. And I'm seeing that now more with especially local businesses. But you've got to engage. You've got to get your customers really excited about what you're doing. So you talk about like a coffee shop. You can't just be a coffee shop anymore. Like, you've got to engage with your customers, make things exciting, get them to want to tell other people as well. Engage on things like social. Again, you still want to show up organically, but you've got to be more interactive, I guess might be a way to say it, to really get people more interested and engaged in your brand.
Scott, I'm excited for you to talk about that, because you put a lot of emphasis on organic. And what I find is that whenever we talk about SEO, a lot of people trick themselves into believing their SEO is just okay. And the way that they prove that is they Google the name of their own business. And that is, you're already shaking your head. Yes. Scott, talk to us about that. Please be the voice that for listeners opens our eyes to what we actually want to be ranking for. It's not just enough to rank for our own names.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, sure, you better rank for your name. That's kind of the first. If you don't, you've got a bigger problem. But if somebody already knows your name, then they kind of already know you're there, and you better show up. But they're not really looking for that. If you've got somebody who we do a lot in HVAC, for instance. So if you have somebody who has a broken furnace or it's not working or whatever, they're going in and they're typing in a problem they have. They're looking for a solution. They might not know your brand at all. They might not know that your shop is just down the street, whatever it might be. So they're typing in a solution. And that is a big change, by the way, over the years. They used to just put in a keyword or two or three words, right? Broken furnace, heater doesn't work, something of that nature. Now they're putting in long tail questions, and that brings AI into it, but also SEO in general, because now you're wanting to write content that solves a problem, content that answers to what they're asking, because more people now are typing in full questions as their search instead of just a quick keyword. And so anyway, I forget where the question was even now. Oh, yeah, the name brand. They're not just typing in your name. They're typing in what their problem is or asking a question about their problem, and they're trying to get a solution. So that's how we have to think now about SEO.
Along those lines, there's one thing I wish I Googled it before asking you this question, but it's always the fact that I want to share as the fun fact at parties, and that is the vast percentage of Google searches every single day are unique. It's the first time that they've ever been searched. To your long tail point is that people aren't searching HVAC company Tampa. A lot of people do, but even more people are searching things that have never been searched before, such as HVAC company Tampa needs service today, 100% satisfaction guarantee. I don't know if anybody's ever searched that or not, but statistically speaking, a lot of searches are more unique than we realize, which, Scott, that has changed the game a lot. You call out the benefits of long tail. Long tail SEO is also harder for us as business owners, because now it becomes, well, if everybody's searching totally different things, unique things that have never been searched before, what am I to do with that? How am I as a business owner supposed to optimize for that?
Yeah, and that comes back to the idea too that a lot what has changed in SEO is that, Google looks a lot now for intent and personal search and various things, and they're trying to take, okay, you typed in this phrase, what are you actually looking for based on your search history and some of those kinds of things. It's no longer about just keywords. Yes, when we're looking at an initial plan for SEO, we do essentially go after core phrases, I'll say, because you have to have something to target. But then you're writing content around that phrase. So you might have a single phrase that's 2 or 3 keywords, and you might create like a pillar page that is about that service, right? So maybe you have one service page about that service. But now we're going to go write a cluster of content. So now we're going to write maybe 12 different blog posts that talk about that phrase in a myriad of different ways. And that whole idea is to fill in all those gaps and try to capture all those different variations of search phrases that people are typing in. Because again, it's no longer just about the initial core phrase. It's about all the different ways people might ask or talk about topics around that phrase, if that makes sense. It's a lot more complex than it used to be.
So does that mean we all need to have blogs in 2026 and beyond?
Absolutely. I think so. I believe so heavily. Because you can't think about, you create a service page, and now you need a cluster of content. You need a bunch of different content pieces so you can write about it all those different ways. You're not going to want to write 12 different service pages about, furnace repair, for instance, sticking with that idea. So a blog is the perfect idea because you can use case studies. You can talk about different ways to repair things. You can call out different types of problems and possible solutions. There's so many different ways you can talk about a topic. And I can't think of any other way except something like a blog to do that.
Yeah, it's so true. Way too many of I'm going to call myself out here as well because I'm guilty of this. Way too many of our websites are static. So of course, Google's not coming back. Of course, it's not indexing new content. Of course, we're not getting found for new searches. So I really appreciate that insight. But I'm going to call out, Scott, where a lot of listener minds are going to go is, okay, cool. Then I'll just ask ChatGPT to write a bunch of blog posts for me. Yeah. Okay or not okay? And what can we do that's better?
Not okay. There's a lot that's happening now. First of all, there's a lot of signals inside AI bots and how they write. You can use AI cleaning tools. There's all kinds of ways that people are trying to work around where they can use AI and use that for all of their search. We actually ran a study on our own blog where we had automated AI posts going out. I don't know if it was daily. It might have been like every other day. We had that sucker running for a year and a half, I think. And those posts were just not getting picked up. And some of them actually read pretty good. It was bad with images and whatnot, but the content wasn't too bad. Search just didn't like it. Now, some do get picked up, but you're really rolling the dice and possibly wasting your time. What's a better way? Use AI to help you draft a post. Use it to create the framework. Use it to get ideas. I mean, there are fantastic uses of AI, but you've got to have posts that are written, I say, for a human, by a human, right? Kind of cliche, but it makes it more real. And trust me, a search engine is going to pick up on that and rank you better for that than if you just grab an AI post and throw it on your blog. It's just not going to work well.
Yeah, which I'll just add fuel to the fire there. We can attest to this, is that obviously you and I are creating human to human content right now. There's no way to replicate the fact that you and I are having a real off the cuff conversation together. We've turned a lot of these into blog posts, and actually those rank higher than anything we've ever done on the show's blog. And so as a podcast, it's very hard to get website traffic. And all of a sudden we are, because there's no other way to replicate our content other than having these real life conversations. So super grateful for you championing that for so many other business owners as well, Scott. I want to talk about what's important for us to do once we get people to our website, but I feel like it's a smart time to loop paid ads into this conversation as well, because paid ads, obviously, if we're spending money for website traffic, if we're spending money for search engines to show us to people, then we want to make sure that we get the most out of that traffic. So let's start with paid ads. Talk to us about that marriage, because I find that all too often a lot of people are either organic experts or paid ad experts. Scott, it's one of the reasons why our pre-production team was so excited to reach out to you and invite you on the show, is that you do full stack marketing from paid side to organic side. What does that look like? Why is that marriage between the two so important, and how do they work together?
There's a lot to that, how it works together. And I will say it's challenging to keep up with both, right? SEO and paid ads, because they keep changing. There's a lot of stuff happening. And a lot of great stuff in paid ads now as well. But when it comes to for a business and how they should use them and why it's a great marriage, we love when a client does both paid and organic, because you're showing up. You have multiple opportunities, first of all, to show up. Let's say you're trying to rank for a really competitive category of terms. Well, while you're working on that and chipping away at getting up the ladder, if you will, to the first page of Google, you can use paid ads to help fill the gap. So now you're still getting traffic for those terms that are critical for your business while you're working on building up your rankings for them. Because obviously ads are quicker. You can build them out, get them live pretty quick. SEO, depending on the term, it could take months to rank well for something highly competitive. Now, let's say you actually get there and you are ranking for that competitive term. We always have clients say, okay, then I can just turn my ads off. No, don't. We might at some point, but now we start tracking the comparison of which traffic are you getting the most of, what's it doing on your website, if you're a lead gen or sales, depending on what you're doing, which one is working best. But this goes back to what I said earlier about TV, radio, and billboard. How great is it if you show up in a SERP listing at the top, where like an answer box or what have you. Maybe you show up in maps, you show up in an ad, and you show up down, lower. I say lower. You could be number one organically, and you're still going to be down lower at this point because there's so many things up top. But let's say you show up in those 4 different places. How much more likely are you as a business going to get that lead or that sale than your competitor who maybe only shows up in one of those places, right? I don't know if it actually maths out this way, but you're at least 4 times more likely because you're showing up 4 times instead of 1. So that's where we go is, hey, if we can get you showing up 4 times on the first page of Google, you're going to have it made. And that's, again, it's a combination of paid. You can use paid for maps as well. So again, filling in the gaps. You're showing up in a SERP listing and organic. Those are both SEO. that's like the cream of the crop to be in 4 places.
Yeah, I'm so grateful for you calling that out, Scott, because I think we as business owners, we forget about that a lot. I'd argue it's probably greater than 4x the impact if you're showing up in all those different ways. It's funny, I just was looking for a new roofer here in Tampa, for example, and I first saw this guy when I was Googling roofing companies here in Tampa. It popped up, on the side of my search engine result page, just as the Google Places or Google Maps listings. Didn't click, but I saw a bunch of companies' names, and then I was scrolling through Instagram. I saw the guy's ad there. I've never clicked his ads in any way. And then eventually when I made a decision to reach out to him, I Googled his website, clicked through, probably showed up as an organic visitor to him, but attribution gaps are a real thing. And so little does he realize how much the paid side of his equation actually did the trick for him. So Scott, I really appreciate how much intention you put behind that, and obviously the strategy to go with it. But it lends itself to that next part of the question that I was excited to get to is, well, when people land on our website, how do we go from attention to actually capturing leads? Because so many people send traffic to home pages that are not set up for lead capture. What should we be doing with the traffic that comes our way?
Yeah. So I'll switch gears to another industry like law firms. We do a lot of work with law firms, and everything we do. So if we have a campaign going after a particular type of practice area that they have, we want to make sure that we drive that traffic to the practice area page. All right. So first of all, you're not trying to get somebody to the homepage. If they get to the homepage, okay, that's cool. You need to have good content hierarchy and good navigation and whatnot as well, so you can still manage them effectively and get them where you want them to go. But the best case scenario is your organic, your paid ads, your SERP listing, whatever it is that you can get on Google, drives them to that practice area page that they are likely looking for or searching for. Once they've landed there, you're already twice as likely to turn them into a solid lead, because you've got them to the content they were initially looking for. They don't land on your site and then have to go, click around and find it. So you get them to the content first. Now it's all about content flow. You do want to have a nice design, but I would argue that your design really comes last. It's the content that's critical, and calls to action. So make sure that you're giving them multiple ways to communicate with you. Have a chatbot. Have an easy way to get to a contact form. Have your email address listed. Have a phone number, absolutely. Have all of those things clickable so they work on mobile as well. It's things like that, calling out, even we call them CTA rows or CTA boxes. Take a content page, break it up at least once, if not twice, with a bar across that has a nice call out, that has those call to action options to have them fill out a form or have them call. Now, obviously, your chatbot's likely going to be on like the bottom right, so that's going to be static. It's going to be there, which is great because they always know where to find it. And usually top right on a page, you want your phone number and maybe some other contact, like a contact page option. It's about giving options to them, so when they land, they're not searching around for how do I contact them. I got to tell you, I can't believe how many times I end up on a website and I'm scrolling and I'm looking across the top. I'm like, how do I get a hold of this company? Your customer should never have to do that. It should be so clear and easy that we move them into that contact spot.
Yeah, but let's face it, Scott, the reason why a lot of business websites don't have a phone number, don't have a chatbot, don't have a way to get in touch is because they don't have that back-end infrastructure. I remember when I was in my early 20s and I started my first business, there was no phone number on my public-facing website because I didn't know what to do and I didn't want to put my personal cell phone number out there. Obviously, there's some really great tech out there today. Google Voice was my earliest solution to that, but now there's way better solutions. I love what you're up to with Surge by Thrive. It's really refreshing always to see marketers emphasizing how important a CRM is in all of our businesses. And Scott, the work that you're doing behind the scenes and the way that you get your clients set up right inside of their CRM, I know that there are options for them to have phone numbers. There are options for them to have chatbots. So introduce us to why the CRM is such a central focal point in the work that you do, because marketing's one thing, but making the most out of your marketing, that's where the magic of a CRM comes in.
Absolutely. And it's a combination. And now we're going to pull AI back in, but in a little bit of a different way. So the CRM, first of all, you really do have to have a good place to manage and organize your customer data and all the contact information and notes and everything else. I mean, that's kind of old school. You just should have a CRM. But now to have a CRM that builds in other things like automations and workflows, even chatbot AIs and stuff like that, this is where I will say AI has been amazing for us internally as well, to have something like a chatbot where AI can handle 9 out of 10 questions, maybe 10 out of 10. And, there's different ways of doing it. We have some clients who try to make it seem like it's not AI. They're like, oh, it's human. You can make that AI bot seem mighty, mighty human. I think I prefer, though, that just be upfront. We're an AI bot, but we can handle a lot of your questions for you. And then you do have the option on there where the AI bot can ask for a human. And maybe they move on, to the next step so they can speak to somebody. But the reality is with that CRM piece is you now have options to build things around it. So think of that CRM as like the core or the hub. And now everything you do from social media to maybe email marketing, to text marketing, everything else can be tied to the CRM. So it's all kind of a single communication, if you will, or communication organizing at least. Now you build in things like the AI bots, and now you're taking care of some things where even if it's just automation through AI. So imagine somebody does try to call you and an AI bot answers. Sounds very human. I can't even believe how much better a lot of the AI voice has gotten in just the last few months. But again, it's there to help for most of the things that, somebody just has a question. Maybe they want to talk about rates. Maybe they need your office hours. Maybe they need something fairly simple. You don't need a human to answer for that. Your AI bot can handle that. Or how about they click on something and they fill out a contact form. All right, a simple automation. They can get their answers possibly sent to them automatically, or at the very least, they get that thank you. We've got your message. Somebody's going to get back to you within an hour or two. You have that for calls and texts now. So if you're a service, if you own like a service company and you're out on jobs all the time, we have ways where if somebody calls you and you just can't take that call, that's okay. It doesn't go through, but then they get a text kicked right back to them that says, hey, I'm actually on a job site right now. Can I call you back in an hour? Whatever you want that message to be. It's all automated. That captures leads and keeps that person from the most likely next step event, which is, well, passing you off, I'm going to jump over to your competitor and call them instead. Now, when you've gotten back to them rather quickly, they're okay to wait an hour and hear from you. They're less likely to jump to your competitor. So a lot that you can do when you have built in, you have that sort of automation and everything built in around your CRM. And that, of course, is all the stuff that we do with Surge.
Yeah, so well said. Oh, I really appreciate that overview because there's so much goodness. And Scott, I really want to emphasize for listeners that it's not just about having the technology. I feel like here in 2026, there are a lot of shiny objects in the world, and people think that just buying the tools is going to get them the results. But Scott, obviously your secret sauce and what you do at Thrive Business Marketing is all about the strategy tied to the tools and most importantly, tied to the execution. So I really appreciate the way that you lay all of this out. And you come armed with examples, which is such a dream here on this podcast because we all listen through the lens of our industries, our businesses, our workflow. So it's really powerful hearing all of this. And because you've been such a wealth of knowledge, I have no idea how you're going to answer this last question because it's super broad. You can take it in any direction you want, but that is, what's your best piece of advice for listeners? We covered so much ground today, and we're being listened to by both entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs at all different stages of their own growth. So as a fellow entrepreneur yourself, what's that one thing that you want to leave them with today?
Oh my gosh, there's actually kind of two things, but one, I love the idea that it doesn't have to be perfect, right? And this will bring in the second part, plan and strategy. You mentioned like we don't just have tools or just throw things at SEO. We create strategy around it. That's an important part. So think about things, plan things out, create roadmaps. But then going back to the first thing I said, things don't have to be perfect, right? Get out there, get it done. You're going to learn as you go. You're going to try something, go, well, that didn't work quite the way I wanted it to. So perfect it from there. Don't wait to do things until it's perfect, because I'm going to tell you now, almost nothing is ever perfect, especially the first way out the door.
Yes, I love that advice. And Scott, I think that's very valuable advice, particularly coming from you, because I feel like it reveals so much of what makes you successful as a marketer is your willingness to try, is your willingness to experiment, because each single one of those experiments gets you closer to perfect, not perfect, obviously. So I really appreciate that advice. And I'm super grateful for listeners to check out all the things that you're doing. I so respect and admire full service agencies such as yourself. I know how much work it is into becoming an expert and staying on top of a world that, holy cow, feels like it changes literally every week now. It's not just a figure of speech. So huge kudos to you. But I'm excited for listeners to see your stuff in action because you practice what you preach. And oftentimes, I remember when I had an SEO agency all the way back in 2012, it was a case of the cobbler's son has no shoes. We certainly did not SEO our own website. But Scott, you are finding the time to do all of those things for your own business as well. So for listeners who want to find you, drop some links on us. Where should listeners go from here?
Best place is just go to our website at thrivesearch.com or Surge, which is surgebythrive.com.
Yes, super easy. And listeners, you already know we're making it even easier by dropping those links down below in the show notes. No matter where it is that you're tuning into today's episode, you can find Scott's links there. We're also linking to Scott's personal LinkedIn. So if you want to add him into your network or reach out and continue the conversation, do not be shy. Most people are. And speaking of not being shy, go to Scott's website because you're going to see that there's a phone number right at the top in the header. There's a giant orange button that says book a strategy call. You do not have to be shy when it comes to taking this stuff more seriously and taking action this year. So Scott, on behalf of myself and all the listeners worldwide, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you very much, Brian. It's great to be here.